morning, everybody. Thank you for joining the session today. My name's Laura and I work for North Yorkshire Fire and Rescue Service. As you'd have known if my background worked, I had a lovely image of the Yorkshire Dales set as a background today, but my laptop is not playing ball. A little bit about me before we start. I work in the prevention team at North Yorkshire Fire and Rescue Service. My job is not about responding to fires or getting cats from trees or people from floodwater. I work delivering kind of education advice to people, trying to keep them safe, really, keep our crews in the fire station and people out in the community nice and safe. So although I work in North Yorkshire, these messages are very much kind of across the board, no matter where you are living. So today we're going to talk a little bit about home fire safety. And I'm going to have some assistance in the background with somebody moving on some slides for me. So if we're okay, just to have the title slide, that would be brilliant, please. There it is. So all about home fire safety. Anything that you learn today does not stay on the internet. Please spread those messages with your friends and family and neighbours who you think that they might apply to as well. Next slide, please. Okay, so I'm not going to apologise, but the session does talk about fire and the impact of fire, which can be devastating for the people involved and the community around as well. So there are no graphic images in this presentation, but it does allude to the fact that people can be seriously injured in fires or they can lose their life. Okay, it's a really serious message. I love working for the fire service. I meet some amazing people, but it is a shame really that we have to exist to try and do that work. So if you are affected by any of the messages in the presentation today, please don't keep it to yourself. Seek out somebody to have a chat with, or if you kind of need a number to call, the NHS or Samaritans are always there to listen as well. Next slide, please. So every fire service across the country, we offer this kind of prevention advice to try and keep people safe at home. The visits that we make are very person-centred, but they cover the same content because this is the reason we find that most fires accidentally start in people's homes. And these are going to be the 8 different things that I talk about during the presentation today. Now, I love talking, so my challenge is to try and keep this on time, but there will be the opportunity to ask questions as well. So the first thing we're going to talk about, and if you can move the slide on, that will be great, please, is the idea of having smoke detection in your home. So here I have a handy prop as well. Every home should have smoke alarms fitted. There should be a minimum of 1 upstairs and 1 downstairs, but depending on your home, you might need more. The benefits of these ones are that they've got a big button in the middle that are really easy to press. So you don't have to climb up on anything. You could use the end of a mop handle, for example, because unless your smoke alarm is tested, we don't know that it's working and whether it would save you in an emergency situation. Okay, so that's the first thing you can do from this session is go at the end, check your smoke alarms and make sure that they're working and make sure that you have enough of them at home as well. Also, think about whether the sound of that alarm going off would wake you up at night time. For example, you might wear a hearing aid during the daytime, but take it out at night. Would you still be able to hear the alarm going off? If you couldn't, there are alternative types of an alarm. They have some flashing lights or vibrating pads. They would only ever go off if the alarm on the ceiling went off as well. So they're not going to disturb you at night time, but they are an extra way of keeping you safe. So test your alarms regularly, make sure they're kept free of dust and discourage little spiders or bugs that might accidentally make them go off as well. Okay, all right, can we have the next slide, please? So everybody heats their home in a different way. Okay, that's very topical at the moment in the towards the end of January, and we've had so much snow. And it's important to keep your homes warm as well for all those health benefits. But every type of heating comes with some kind of risk. So, for example, if you have gas central heating, make sure that your boiler is serviced regularly. If you have an open fire or a wood burning stove, make sure that your chimney is swept regularly and you're using proper quality fuel. Kind of damp wood can cause the inside of your chimney to fur up, and then that material can catch fire. We get called out to quite a lot of chimney fires here, kind of over the winter time. If you have portable electric or oil-filled radiators, it's important that they're not too close to items that might fall on top of them, like blankets or cushions from the sofa. Or that the wires could create a trip hazard as well. So be mindful of all of these different risks when it comes to heating your home. And with portable heaters as well, they use a lot of energy. So make sure that they are plugged in directly to the wall socket. They shouldn't be going into any kind of extension lead. Next slide, please. Okay, electrical fire safety. So this is something that I've got a few more props for in front of me. If in your home you have any cube adapters, so like this, where something can go in the top or the sides. So on this one, for example, you could have 3 different things going into one small plastic cube. And that itself might be going into an extension lead, and it's just too many things. We've seen examples of the plastic getting too hot and catching fire, or also you might have something like an iron or a hoover plugged into it and it gets pulled around so it doesn't sit flat against the wall anymore, and you might have electricity arcing between the 2 points. So if you have any of these at home, it's much safer to get rid of them and get a longer flat extension like this one, where things are spread out so things don't get so hot. If you can, though, just try and remove some of the things which are plugged in. They don't all need to be in together. Now, this can lead to more problems. We call it daisy chaining, where one extension lead gets plugged into another. It's quite common because in our homes, plug sockets are often in the wrong place or we don't have enough of them. But if you are experiencing that, always just stick to one extension lead. And if you need to have an electrician come around and look at some more suitable places for plug sockets, that's something to consider to keeping yourself safe at home. Okay, when it comes to charging things like mobile phones or laptops, it's much safer to charge them during the day rather than when you're asleep. And make sure that they're charging on a hard surface rather than kind of on the arm of a sofa or the cushion of a chair, where they can overheat and catch fire. If you need to buy a replacement charger, I don't know if you'll be able to see it here, but for example, the wiring on that, the rubber has gone on the outside, which probably means that the electrics inside are damaged as well. This charger had a particularly hard life because it belonged to one of my children and it got kind of pushed in and pulled out and damaged that way. So don't carry on using a damaged charging cable. Try and get a replacement one from the proper branded shop. So if, for example, you have an Apple phone, get an Apple charger, not a cheaper one that might not have had all of the same safety checks. Next slide, please. So these are lots of different things that you can do in your home to keep yourself safe from an electrical fire from starting. Now, on my screen, that's far too small for me to be able to read now. But from kind of my experience and knowledge, if you can register some of the products that you have, your appliances like fridges, freezers, washing machines, tumble dryers, that's a really good way to keep yourself safe because there might have been a product recall about some of these items. You can do that online for free on a website called Register My Appliance, and they will ask you some details about the brand and the model number. And that way, if there ever is a product recall, they can get in touch with you and let you know that yours needs to be tested. It's a really good idea to try and turn things off that you're not using at night time. And that's because you're more vulnerable when you're asleep. If a fire started, it would take you longer to realise and longer to get out. Okay, so try not to use washing machines and tumble dryers at night time. Try not to charge your phone at night time. If you've got bigger things in your home that you need to charge, so for example, e-bikes or mobility scooters, we are seeing rising numbers of fires started because of these items, particularly e-bikes, which have had an aftermarket conversion. So think about where you are charging those items. Don't block escape routes and charge them just kind of the short amount of time that they need. Make sure they're turned off before you go to sleep as well. Next slide, please. So that's an advert for the Register My Appliance website. Next slide, please. And there's some of the promotional material that we provide as well. This is a poster for making sure that your electric items aren't blocking escape routes and that you're charging them safely. Next slide, please. Most fires in people's homes start in the kitchen. They're really busy, chaotic places where lots of things are happening. But commonly, fires most often start because of cooking, and that's items left on top of the hob. So some things you can do to keep yourself safe are making sure you stay with your cooking. Don't get distracted. Don't go and take that phone call or send that message or answer the door. Stay with your cooking. Make sure that the area around the hob is kept free of other items like tea towels and kitchen rolls. Quite often people have near misses when it comes to cooking. And sometimes that can be useful because it makes you more observant, but sometimes it means that something has to change with that routine. And it might be that you have a chair in the kitchen or a stool instead to make it more comfortable for you to stay there. Making sure that your oven is clean from the build-up of grease, because that's another reason why fires can start. And making sure that microwaves are clear on the top so that they're not overheating. And also in the kitchen, think about your appliances when you put your tumble dryer on and your washing machines and things as well. For general fire safety, we also get called out to fires which start because of candles. So yeah, here we go. I've got another prop for you here. This type of candle with a naked flame is already a fire, okay? And it's easy for a small fire to quickly turn it into a larger, unwelcome fire, particularly if you've got pets who might accidentally knock them over. So with candles, if you are lighting them, make sure that they're away from curtains on a nice sturdy surface, in a holder that's designed for a candle. Even some of the ones that you can buy, like decorative candles at Christmas time, the decoration around it isn't really suitable to be used. It's much safer, where can I put that, to use a battery operated candle instead. They make a good alternative. They've just got a little battery inside rather than a naked flame. All right, next slide, please. We get asked quite a lot about clutter and hoarding. Now, we use a scale called the Clutter Index Rating to make sure that we're all talking about the same level of items, because my idea of cluttered might not be your idea of cluttered. And everybody has the right to live in their own home as they wish. From our point of view, if you have got a busy home, we'd like you to be able to get out safely if there is a fire. So making sure there are clear paths through your home, making sure that there's nothing blocking the doors, make sure you've got smoke alarms, and prioritise those areas around where you're cooking and where you're heating as well. So it is something that we come across quite a lot as the fire service, okay, but we work with people kind of within what they're permitting, I think is fair to say. And the next slide, please. Not all fires that start in everybody's homes are accidental. Sometimes it is a crime and somebody's been deliberately targeted And we get referrals from the police in particular, where there have been threats made of arson, and we offer reassurance visits, really. And again, it's about making sure that smoke alarms are fitted and the person or the family who live there have an escape plan. And whoever you are, it's really important to have an escape plan for your home. Think about what you would do if you were asleep and the smoke alarms went off. Are you able to kind of get to the door and get out? Because that's our advice. We want you to get outside, and once you're outside, then you ring the fire service. Don't hang around inside. Don't try and tackle a fire yourself. If you're not able to get out safely, then make sure you can close your bedroom door. You can put something at the bottom to stop smoke coming in, and then have a way of contacting the emergency services. Okay, so you might not necessarily need to get out. The way homes are built, they're designed to be able to allow you that time to call for help, and then the fire service will come and assist you out. But it's really important to make sure that you've got that means of letting us know if there is an emergency. Okay, next slide, please. So I think it's fair to say that a lot of the fire safety I've talked about so far could be considered common sense and things that you do on an everyday basis to keep yourselves safe. Where we get quite a lot of feedback in terms of, oh, I didn't know that, is when we talk about medicines and medical devices. So we've got a few things to talk about here. One of them is prescription medication. And the consequence of taking that might mean it makes you feel a bit drowsy. So if you're cooking or smoking, that could increase the fire risk. So think about the medication that you're taking and whether you need to make any small changes to how you're kind of living at home. With emollient creams, so these are skin creams used for dry skin conditions like eczema and psoriasis, or to try and prevent bed sores if somebody's spending a long period of time in bed. And they're very safe creams to use, and we're not suggesting to stop using them. But it is also important to know that they change the nature of fire. So when they're applied to your skin, if you then put on a dressing gown or a pair of trousers, whatever you're wearing, the cream sinks into that material. And any material is flammable. It could catch fire if it comes into contact with a naked flame. But material that has had contact with these emollient creams is much easier to catch fire. And if it does start to burn, it burns at a much higher temperature, so you have less time to respond. And if you're using these creams because of your mobility is also already reduced, okay, the consequence can be very severe. So there is increased risk if somebody is using emollient cream, if they are older, and if they have reduced mobility. So if these kind of things apply to you, it's important to have a conversation with a trusted family member or a pharmacist about seeing whether you can maybe swap to a water-based cream or try to remove the risk that's around you. So it would be really important not to have candles if you are using a wood-burning stove or an open fire, for example, making sure that you don't come into contact with the flame there. Some of the things you can do to reduce the risk would be to wash your clothes more frequently at a higher temperature, and that removes some of the product. But it might also transfer onto other things in the washing machine. So beware of that as well. We kind of work with people who provide the medical oxygen that people use at home to make sure that the introduction of kind of extra oxygen within the air is managed safely as well. And if somebody's using an airflow product, whether that be a cushion or a mattress, again, it's really important that extra safety steps are taken to keep them safe. So that's making sure that no hot items come into contact with that mattress and that nobody's smoking, because there's a combination of that heat source, probably bedding that's contaminated with emollient creams, and the extra air that's being pumped into the mattress all at the same time. So yeah, those are some of the things that we cover when we talk about kind of medical devices. They don't start fires necessarily, but they can make the situation a lot different and a lot worse. Okay, next slide, please. Smoking remains the biggest behaviour that is linked to fire safety. Okay, so people smoke very differently in their homes. Some people will only go to the garden and smoke outside with a jam jar filled with water to put the cigarette butts in. But some of the more dangerous smoking materials or smoking behaviours might be smoking in bed, or smoking while you're taking medication that makes you feel drowsy, for example. If somebody is smoking at home, it's really important to have a big, sturdy ashtray there as well. And we might also make referrals on to stop smoking services. If somebody was interested in giving up or making that change to a vape, it's not compulsory by any means, but it's signposting somebody to try and make safer decisions as well. Okay, next slide, please. Okay, every fire service across the country offers a home fire safety visit, or it might be called a safe and well visit, depending on whereabouts you live. And during those visits, we talk about all of those things that I've discussed during the presentation today. So we check smoke alarms, we make sure they're in the right place and that they're working. We look at how somebody heats their home and whether it's kind of safe in their kitchen. We talk about routines and would plan an escape route with them. So the visits are really all-encompassing. And the first step to try and get one is you can complete this form online. And that kind of assesses your personal risk. Everybody lives differently. So it will give you some really useful information, hopefully, about how to keep yourselves and the people that you live with safe at home. So that's a free thing that you can do yourselves. The link is in this presentation, and there's also a QR code there. If you're unable to fill it in online, you can contact your local fire service on their non-emergency number, and they will get back in touch with you and arrange to have a visit. But I hope you found that interesting and useful. To summarise, if you want to move on to the last slide, please, I think there's like a little bit of homework for you. So thank you for listening, but things that you can do to keep yourselves safe are listed here. You can check that your smoke alarms are working. Okay, you can plan an escape route that factors in everybody living in your home, and that includes pets as well. They are like family members, and if you can get them out while you're getting out, that's brilliant, but don't ever go back into a fire to try and get your pet. So make kind of a few minutes just to make your escape plan. Plan getting down the stairs, getting to the door. Where do you keep your key, for example? If you had any of these at home, those cube adapters, try and get rid of those and go for the safer option of long flat extensions. Fill in that link for the online home fire safety check and find out kind of personalised advice about how you can stay safe in your home, and have that conversation. Next time you see your friends or neighbours, say that you joined the virtual Village Hall fire safety talk and kind of talk about some of the things you learnt. So thank you for your time today. And yeah, if you have any questions, feel free to put them in the comments. Thank you.